trends to change is what it is. So I researched and looked into numbers and dove into certain things to look at kind of what happened last year that kept this team from being successful. And I found a couple of different things that were consistent themes throughout the season, and you'll see them when you look at the games that LSU lost. So let's start with this. Lack of pressure plays well into what I just talked about in the fact that LSU doesn't have that second defensive end guy that's getting in the backfield, getting sacks, getting TFLs, forcing opposing quarterbacks to make mistakes. Last year, in the 4 games that LSU lost, 10-4 season, in each of those 4, this team had no sacks. And that meant there were no turnovers forced in the back end. We'll have more on that in just a second. But they weren't getting in the backfield and turning offenses one-dimensional. They weren't getting into quarterbacks' heads consistently in these games that they lost and forcing those turnovers, forcing those mistakes. And you need those things to happen when you want to win these big games. Let's reflect back to last year. What are the games that LSU lost? Florida State in the opener, a game they probably should have won. Then they lost to Tennessee, like Jacques and I were talking about a minute ago. Game that was a blowout, a game where, Tennessee runs that up-tempo, fast-style offense. They like to throw it all over the yard, right? No sacks in that game. Then Texas A&M. The defense, in general, just was not good that game. A&M had 500-plus yards of offense. Happens, but you can't let it happen. And then the SEC Championship, no sacks against Georgia as well. So that's the biggest question, and we've talked about this so much already. How can LSU go from 10-4 to maybe 13-1, 15-0? Things like that. You got to get pressure. You need your playmakers to make plays in these big games where maybe you don't have the talent advantage, but you need individual players to step up. So need more pressure next year somehow, some way from this LSU defense. With that pressure will create turnovers. LSU was +1 in the turnover department for the season last year, which isn't bad. I mean, you want to be in the positive. It's a good place to start. But in the 4 games they lost, I'm just focusing on those 4, they lost the turnover battle. -1, -2, nothing crazy. But in these games where you're playing a top 10 Georgia team, a top 10 Tennessee team, even an unranked Texas A&M team, you can't afford in close games to give up possessions. That Texas A&M game was a 15-point loss. I think they turned it over twice that game. That's 2 drives where if you score, you can get 15 points. Touchdown, touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. So that gives away the game right there, basically. Just those unfortunate bounce of ball situations. Now, what might help this defense this year with these turnovers is you're revamping that secondary. Can Zy Alexander, can Major Burns, can Deuce Chestnut, guys like that force more turnovers, get their hands on balls, and just make plays at the DB position. That's kind of something that will help play into this whole turnover thing. But if you want to be more successful this upcoming season, you need more turnovers forced defensively, and you got to take better care of the ball offensively. What might help with that is vamping up that run game. Can you find 2 or 3 running backs who can find success? It's not Jaden Daniels alone relying on his feet to make plays, being that dual threat guy, right? Can you get a Noah Cain more involved? Can you get a Logan Diggs more involved? So you're not throwing it too much, you're throwing interceptions, you're putting the ball in harm's way. That's going to help too. So got to clean up the turnovers next year. 2 other things. The run defense buckled in these big games. Florida State, the opener, they allowed 131 yards. That's not that bad, honestly. But the common theme is that they allowed 130 or more yards in each of the losses, and it got worse as the season went on. Tennessee, they allowed 263. Georgia, 255. Texas A&M, 274. And that goes along with the passing offenses that each of those teams had last year. A&M wasn't that good, but in this particular game, it was really good. Georgia, of course, had Stetson Bennett and all the weapons on the outside. They put up 200-plus passing yards easily. Tennessee did the same when they had Hendon Hooker. So if you allow opposing offenses that are known for the pass, get the run game going too, you're in trouble. And LSU was last year. 0-4 in the games where they allowed 130 more rushing yards. So you need to clean that up this upcoming season. What's going to help with that? Mason Smith is back. He's clogging up the middle. You add in Jordan Jefferson, who we talked about on episode 2 on Tuesday. Check it out if you missed it. The nose tackle from West Virginia. You got more depth at that D tackle spot, and you're hoping that guys like Savion Jones can step up at the end. And your linebackers, Omar Spates, transferring from Oregon State. Harold Perkins is back. and a little more experienced secondary, Major Burns returning. So you're hoping that the run defense will just get better in its own with the personnel guys coming back, but that's got to be better too. And then finally, this is something that was just interesting that I noticed. Over the past 10 years, LSU's road record, 24-20. That's not that bad, but if you want to be a national champion team, you can't be putting up those numbers over a 10-year basis, and really a year-to-year basis either. You look back to early 2010s, 1-3, 1-4, 0-3. In years where LSU was successful, think 2019, 5-0 on the road, on their way to the national championship. But then there's the other side of that equation, 2021, when LSU is less than stellar. Coach O is fired and walks out the door, 1-4 on the road that season. Now last year, signs of optimism. Brian Kelly, 3-1. That's what you need, that lone road loss to Texas A&M, of course. You need to cut out those road losses, and that's a trend that needs to change. And maybe with Brian Kelly just being here, that will change. There's a lot of turnover in those years, Les Miles, Coach O, and whatnot. But that's not a pretty stat, 24-20 over the last 10 years. One last thing on this, I found this very interesting. Coach Kelly, in his entire FBS career, 27-32 on the road. Not great, but at LSU, he's 3-1, and that's all we care about. And we'll see what he can do this upcoming season. So those are things that LSU needs to change. All right, let's just recap. Getting more pressure in the backfield, getting more turnovers, taking care of the ball better. Run defense needs to stand up much better, and just be good on the road like they were last year. Keep that going.